5 true scary stories that will haunt your next road trip. What happens when the thrill of the open road turns into a nightmarish encounter? Road trips are often painted as a beautiful rite of passage, a chance to escape the routine and explore the world with friends or family. The promise of endless landscapes, spontaneous adventures, and laughter shared in the confined space of a car can be intoxicating. We dream of winding roads, stunning vistas, and the freedom that comes with a full tank of gas and an open map. But beneath this alluring facade lies a darker side, one where unexpected horrors lurk just beyond our headlights, waiting to transform a joyous journey into a chilling nightmare. Picture this. You're driving down a desolate highway, the sun slowly sinking beneath the horizon, casting an eerie glow that fades with every passing mile. The atmosphere shifts as twilight blankets the road, filling the air with an unsettling tension. Suddenly, the familiar road transforms into a potential trap, and the warm glow of your headlights reveals shapes that may not belong. Each passing shadow could be an invitation to an adventure or a harbinger of something sinister. These unsettling moments remind us that the unknown can lurk at every turn, turning a carefree journey into a heart-stopping experience. In this video, we'll delve into 5 true scary stories of eerie road trip encounters. Each narrative will unveil the lurking dangers and mysteries that exist just beyond the headlights, ready to send shivers down your spine. From unsettling hitchhikers to abandoned gas stations that seem to breathe with life, these stories illustrate the psychological impact of travel and the feelings of vulnerability that arise when we venture into the unknown. So buckle up, keep your eyes on the road, and prepare for a journey into the chilling world of eerie road trip encounters. You might just think twice before your next adventure on the open road. Story 1: The Hitchhiker. On a dark, moonless night, Sarah found herself navigating a lonely country road, the faint glow of her headlights barely cutting through the suffocating darkness that surrounded her. The only sounds were the soft hum of the engine and the occasional rustle of leaves whispering secrets in the chilling breeze. Tall trees lined the road, their skeletal branches clawing at the sky, creating an imposing canopy that felt both protective and threatening. With each passing mile, the sense of isolation deepened, and the air became thick with tension. She had always loved the solitude of driving at night. It was an escape from her busy life, a chance to clear her mind. But tonight felt different. The unease in her stomach grew heavier, urging her to turn back. As Sarah rounded a bend, she spotted a figure standing on the side of the road, a hitchhiker. It was strange to see anyone out here, especially at this hour. Curiosity and a twinge of compassion overruled her instincts, and she slowed the car to a stop. The hitchhiker approached, and as he climbed into the passenger seat, a sense of foreboding washed over her. His clothes were ragged, and his eyes glinted with a strange intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. He introduced himself as Mark, and his voice was low and gravelly, as if it had been worn down by countless stories and whispered secrets. As they drove on, Mark began sharing strange tales about the local legends of the area. His voice dripped with a haunting familiarity as he spoke of mysterious disappearances and ghostly apparitions that roamed the very roads they traveled. Each story sent chills crawling up Sarah's spine, but she found herself unable to look away, entranced by the macabre nature of his words. He described a haunted bridge not far from where they were driving, a place where it was said that travelers often vanished without a trace, their screams swallowed by the night. Sarah's heart raced as she listened. The flickering shadows cast by the headlights danced along the road, echoing the unease swelling within her. But it wasn't until Mark pointed toward a specific spot off the road that the real dread set in. "That's where it happened," he said, his finger directed towards a darkened area shrouded in trees. "They say you can still hear her cries if you listen closely." Sarah's grip tightened around the steering wheel, and her heart pounded in her chest. An instinctual warning nagged at her, begging her to pull over and demand that he leave the car. The weight of his presence felt like a looming threat, and the eerie stories he shared began to blur the lines between reality and nightmare. As they passed the designated spot, the hairs on the back of Sarah's neck stood up, and a chilling breeze seemed to flow through the car, carrying whispers of the past. she caught a glimpse of something in the darkness, a flicker of movement that made her blood run cold. Was it just her imagination, or was there truly something sinister lurking in the shadows? The anxiety in her gut reached a crescendo, and she could no longer ignore the overwhelming sense of danger. "Can you drop me off up ahead?" Mark suddenly requested, his tone shifting to one that sent a fresh wave of terror through her. "I'd prefer to walk the rest of the way." Panic surged through Sarah as she mentally calculated her options. This wasn't a simple ride anymore. She could feel it in her bones. Against her better judgment, she nodded, and they continued down the road, her heart racing as they approached a more desolate area. As they neared a clearing, she spotted a faint outline of an abandoned building, its broken windows resembling empty eye sockets staring into the void. A primal instinct kicked in, and without waiting for his response, Sarah slammed on the brakes, her tires screeching against the pavement. "Get out," she shouted, her voice trembling with fear. The hitchhiker's expression shifted, a mixture of surprise and something darker creeping into his features. Mark hesitated, but the urgency in her voice seemed to awaken him from whatever trance he was in. With a swift motion, he opened the door and stepped out, but not before casting a final, lingering glance back at her. "You shouldn't have picked me up," he said cryptically, before disappearing into the shadows. Breathless and shaking, Sarah pressed the gas pedal to the floor, speeding away from the ominous spot and the unsettling encounter. The road stretched out before her, but no amount of distance could erase the weight of what had just transpired. Her heart raced, her mind replaying every eerie detail of the night. What had been a simple drive had turned into a horrific reminder of her vulnerability and the dangers that lay hidden in the world. As she left the darkness behind, she couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister had followed her, lurking just beyond the headlights, waiting for its next opportunity to strike. Story 2: The Abandoned Gas Station. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the road, Mark and Lisa found themselves driving into dusk. The fading light painted the sky with hues of deep orange and indigo, creating a striking contrast to the desolation that surrounded them. They had been on the road for hours, laughter echoing between them as they reminisced about their favorite memories together. But as they ventured deeper into the countryside, the atmosphere shifted, and unease began to creep in. In the distance, a decrepit gas station came into view, its once vibrant neon sign now flickering ominously, illuminating the dilapidated structure in sporadic bursts of light. The faded letters spelling gas hung crookedly, a relic of a time when the station was alive with the hustle and bustle of travelers. Now it sat abandoned, a ghostly reminder of what had been. Mark and Lisa exchanged wary glances, their hearts quickening at the sight of the forsaken building. "Should we stop?" Lisa asked, a mix of curiosity and trepidation in her voice. Mark shrugged, a grin creeping onto his face. "Why not? It could be an adventure." With that, he turned the wheel, guiding their vehicle toward the overgrown lot. The gravel crunched beneath the tires as they parked, the sound echoing through the heavy silence. Stepping out of the car, the chill of the evening air washed over them, sending a shiver down Lisa's spine. The silence was oppressive, as if the world had muted itself in anticipation. They approached the gas station, the flickering sign casting eerie shadows that danced across the cracked pavement. The front door creaked open as they pushed it, the sound reverberating like a distant whisper, beckoning them inside. Once inside, they were greeted by an unsettling atmosphere. Dust motes floated in the air, illuminated by the sporadic light from the flickering bulbs overhead. The shelves were lined with rusting cans and broken glass, remnants of a time long forgotten. A thick layer of dust coated everything, and the stale scent of mildew lingered, enveloping them like a shroud. It felt as if the gas station itself held its breath, watching them as they moved through the desolate interior. "Wow, this place is a dump," Mark chuckled, his voice echoing in the empty space. But Lisa remained quiet, a knot of unease forming in her stomach. There was something about the silence that felt wrong, something that made her skin crawl. As they ventured deeper, the sensation of being watched intensified, each shadow stretching unnaturally in the dim light. They explored the office area where old maps lay scattered across a dusty counter. A thick layer of grime coated everything, but they found remnants of past lives, forgotten photographs, a dusty cash register, and broken chairs. Lisa picked up a faded photo, her heart racing as she studied the smiling faces of the family who once owned the gas station. There was something eerily nostalgic about the image, and she felt an inexplicable sadness wash over her. "Hey, check this out," Mark called from the back room, excitement lacing his voice. Lisa turned to find him holding up a rusty oil can, grinning like a child who had just discovered treasure. But as she stepped toward him, the air shifted, a cold breeze sweeping through the station, causing the hair on the back of her neck to stand on end. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the empty space, reverberating off the walls like a warning bell. Lisa froze, her heart pounding in her chest. Mark's smile faded, and a look of confusion replaced his playful demeanor. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, his eyes wide with fear. Lisa nodded, her breath catching in her throat. They stood in silence, straining to listen. The growl came again, more pronounced this time, sending chills racing down Lisa's spine. It felt as if something sinister lurked just beyond their sight, watching them, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. Panic surged through her, urging her to flee. "Let's get out of here," Lisa urged, her voice trembling. Mark didn't hesitate. They turned on their heels, sprinting toward the exit, their hearts pounding in unison. But as they reached the door, it slammed shut with a resounding thud, trapping them inside. The growling intensified, and the feeling of dread hung heavy in the air. "Try the door," Mark shouted, his panic rising as he shoved against it. Lisa pulled with all her strength, but the door wouldn't budge. Desperation clawed at her throat, and she could feel the presence drawing closer, an unseen force that sent terror coursing through her veins. With one final push, the door flew open, and they stumbled outside into the cool night air. They didn't look back as they raced to their car, their breath coming in ragged gasps. The growling faded into the distance, but the feeling of being pursued lingered in the back of their minds. As they sped away from the abandoned gas station, Lisa glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something lurking in the shadows. The flickering sign dimmed behind them, swallowed by the darkness. They had escaped, but the haunting feeling that something had been alive within those walls stayed with them, a chilling reminder of the encounter. The road ahead felt uncertain, but one thing was clear: not all places were meant to be explored, and some secrets were best left undisturbed. Story 3: The Vanishing Car. Jake and Emily had been looking forward to this scenic road trip for weeks, their excitement bubbling over as they set out on a bright, sunny morning. The promise of adventure awaited them as they left the hustle and bustle of city life behind, cruising along winding roads that snaked through lush forests and rolling hills. Laughter filled the car as they sang along to their favorite tunes, the radio blasting melodies that harmonized with their carefree spirits. But as they entered a dense woodland area, the sun began to wane, and a thick fog rolled in, swallowing the vibrant colors of the scenery. The atmosphere shifted dramatically. The cheerful vibes from earlier were replaced with an unsettling quiet that settled around them like a heavy blanket. The vibrant greens of the trees turned into ghostly silhouettes, and the cheerful chirping of birds fell silent, creating an eerie stillness that sent a chill down Emily's spine. "Do you think we should have taken that left turn back there?" Emily asked, glancing nervously at the map sprawled across her lap. The twisting roads felt like a labyrinth, and she couldn't shake the feeling that they were veering off course. Jake shrugged, trying to reassure her. "It's fine, just a little detour. We'll find our way back." As they continued deeper into the fog, an unsettling tension built between them, a sense of isolation that grew with each passing moment. Suddenly, Jake's attention was drawn to something unusual ahead, a flickering light shimmering through the dense fog. It pulsed erratically, casting an otherworldly glow that beckoned them forward like a will-o'-the-wisp. "Look over there," Jake exclaimed, pointing toward the source of the flickering. "What do you think that is?" Emily squinted into the haze, her heart pounding in her chest. "I don't know, but it looks like a light. Maybe it's a cabin or something. We should check it out." Despite her trepidation, curiosity tugged at her, urging her to explore. As they cautiously approached the flickering light, a sense of dread settled over them. The atmosphere was charged with an unsettling energy, and every instinct within Emily screamed for them to turn back. The light danced in and out of visibility, flickering like a faulty bulb, leading them deeper into the unknown. But something compelled Jake to drive closer, his eyes wide with fascination. Just as they reached the spot where the light seemed to shine the brightest, it vanished entirely, leaving them enveloped in an oppressive darkness. The sudden absence of illumination made the fog feel even thicker, wrapping around the car like icy fingers. What just happened? Emily gasped, glancing at Jake, who appeared equally bewildered. Maybe it was just a trick of the light, he suggested, though his voice lacked conviction. The growing unease was palpable, and the silence that followed felt suffocating. They sat in the stillness, listening to the sound of their own breaths, which seemed far too loud against the eerie backdrop of the fog. "Let's just keep moving," Emily urged, her voice shaking slightly. They continued down the road, but with each passing moment, the familiar surroundings began to fade away. The asphalt felt like it was twisting and turning, each curve more disorienting than the last. Panic clawed at their throats as the once solid road seemed to dissolve beneath them, leading them into a void of uncertainty. "I can't see anything," Jake exclaimed, gripping the steering wheel tightly as the car jerked slightly. Emily's heart raced as she looked out the windows, the fog now pressing against the glass like a suffocating presence. It felt as if they were being swallowed whole by the mysterious woods, lost in a nightmare from which there was no escape. "Jake, I don't like this. We need to turn back," Emily shouted, her voice rising with panic. But as Jake tried to reverse, the car wouldn't budge. It felt like they were ensnared in an invisible trap, the fog cocooning them, distorting their perception of reality. "Maybe if I just give it some gas," Jake muttered, his brows furrowing in concentration. The car roared, but the tires struggled against an unseen force, the world outside remaining an endless expanse of gray. In that moment, isolation enveloped them, amplifying their fear and leaving them feeling utterly vulnerable. Suddenly, the fog began to lift, swirling around them as if reluctantly letting go. With a slow, agonizing motion, the world began to reveal itself once more. As the mist dissipated, the scenery shifted, and they found themselves on a deserted road, eerily quiet and abandoned. The realization hit them like a cold wave. They were stranded in the middle of nowhere, with no sign of civilization or any explanation for how they had arrived here. "Where are we?" Jake breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. Emily looked around, a sense of dread clawing at her insides. The road stretched ahead, empty and forlorn, surrounded by dense trees that loomed like silent sentinels. The light that had drawn them in was nowhere to be seen, leaving behind only the haunting echoes of their encounter. "What just happened?" Emily asked, her voice trembling with confusion and fear. She felt a knot of anxiety tightening in her chest as they sat in silence, grappling with the reality of their situation. It was as if the very landscape had conspired against them, drawing them into a web of mystery and terror. With no clear direction or understanding of how they had ended up there, Jake turned the ignition, hoping for a spark of life from the engine. But all they could hear was the heavy silence enveloping them, punctuated only by the rustle of leaves and the distant call of unseen creatures. The horror of being stranded without explanation hung in the air, and they both understood that this road trip would never be the same. What was meant to be a journey of discovery had turned into a haunting encounter with the unknown, leaving them forever changed by the shadows that lurked just beyond the reach of their headlights. Story 4. The Creepy Motel. After hours of driving through dark, winding roads and thick woods, Jake and Emily were relieved to spot a flickering neon sign in the distance. It read Cedar Grove Motel, and it seemed to emerge out of the shadows like a mirage, offering them a semblance of safety and comfort. As they pulled into the gravel parking lot, however, a chill ran down Emily's spine, the hairs on her neck standing on end. The motel looked dilapidated, its paint peeling and the windows fogged over. The neon sign sputtered intermittently, casting an unsettling glow over the crumbling facade. Despite its unkempt appearance, Jake insisted they needed to rest, and Emily, too exhausted to protest, reluctantly agreed. As they stepped into the lobby, An eerie quiet filled the air, interrupted only by the faint hum of an overhead fan that swayed like a pendulum, creating an ominous rhythm. The clerk behind the counter was an elderly man, his features obscured by the dim light. He eyed them suspiciously, his gaze lingering a moment too long, sending an uncomfortable shiver through Emily. "We have a room available," he rasped, his voice gravely like the gravel outside. He slid a key across the counter, the clinking of metal echoing in the silence. They took the key, feeling its weight in Emily's palm, and made their way to their room. As they approached room 7, a sense of foreboding settled over them. The door creaked ominously as Jake pushed it open, revealing a dimly lit interior that reeked of mildew. The furnishings were sparse: an unmade bed, a rickety chair, and a TV that looked like it had last been used in the early 90s. The wallpaper peeled away from the walls, revealing stains and something that looked suspiciously like mold creeping underneath. It was not the welcoming retreat they had hoped for. "Let's just get some rest," Jake said, trying to sound optimistic, but Emily could hear the uncertainty in his voice. She nodded, forcing a smile, but her discomfort was palpable. They unpacked their things and settled into the unsettling atmosphere, each moment stretched by the weight of unspoken fears. As night fell, strange sounds began to echo from the depths of the motel. It started as a soft scratching, like claws scraping against the walls. Emily glanced at Jake, who was watching the shadows dance around them with a frown etched on his face. Then came the muffled thuds, as if something heavy was being dragged along the floor above them. Emily's heart raced, and she tried to shake off the feeling of being watched, but the paranoia crept in like an unwelcome guest. The discomfort escalated when strange noises seeped through the thin walls. Whispers fluttered just beyond their hearing, a chorus of voices that seemed to rise and fall like a sinister tide. Emily's unease grew. Every shadow cast by the flickering light felt like a threat lurking just out of sight. They decided to explore the motel to distract themselves, hoping that familiarity would quell their anxiety. As they walked through the dimly lit corridors, they noticed several oddities. Doors were slightly ajar, and they could catch glimpses of guests inside, strange figures cloaked in shadows, their faces obscured. A woman in a tattered dress stared blankly at the wall, while a man with hollow eyes sat hunched over in silence. Their unsettling presence sent chills down Emily's spine, amplifying her sense of dread. "Let's go back," Emily whispered, her voice barely audible. Jake nodded, feeling the weight of her fear. As they retraced their steps, the whispers intensified, swirling around them, and Jake felt a prickle of paranoia creeping along his spine. Once back in their room, they locked the door, the click of the bolt echoing like a gunshot in the oppressive silence. They sat in silence, hearts racing, listening to the unsettling ambience that surrounded them. Just when they thought the tension might ease, a loud bang reverberated outside their door, followed by a series of hushed whispers that sent terror coursing through Emily's veins. "What if it's someone trying to get in?" she gasped, gripping Jake's arm tightly. He shot her a reassuring look, but the fear in his eyes betrayed his composure. "Let's just wait. It's probably just other guests," he replied, though his voice wavered. They held their breaths, straining to listen. The whispers grew louder, clearer, yet the words remained indistinguishable, a cacophony of unsettling murmurs that made the air feel thick with dread. Just then, a soft scratching noise began at the bottom of the door, like fingernails dragging across the wood. Emily felt her heart race, panic surging through her. "What is that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Jake's eyes widened as he reached for his phone, flicking on the flashlight. "Stay back," he warned, positioning himself protectively in front of Emily. They waited in the suffocating silence, breaths held, as the scratching continued, slowly rising higher, moving to the doorknob, where it stopped abruptly. The whispers crescendoed, sounding almost like laughter, an otherworldly glee that chilled them to the bone. With adrenaline surging through him, Jake suddenly lunged for the door, flinging it open wide. They were met with nothing but the empty hallway, eerily silent and devoid of life. The only sound was the distant creaking of the building, as if it was alive, breathing in sync with their fears. They exchanged terrified glances, their hearts racing as the realization dawned upon them. Whatever had been outside was now inside their heads. "Let's get out of here!" Jake shouted, and they hurriedly grabbed their things, adrenaline fueling their movements. The motel felt as though it was shifting around them, alive with secrets and hidden horrors. They sprinted toward the lobby, hearts pounding as they bolted through the corridor, the whispers trailing behind them, a haunting reminder of the horrors they had just faced. Bursting through the front doors, they were met with the cool night air that felt like a cleansing breath after being submerged in a nightmare. They rushed to their car, fumbling with the keys, their hands shaking as they unlocked the door. The engine roared to life, a sound of salvation that drowned out the echoes of the motel behind them. As they sped away, the creeping shadows of the Cedar Grove Motel faded into the rearview mirror. But the lingering unease remained. They knew they were leaving behind more than just a dilapidated building. They were escaping from the unknown horrors that lurked within, forever haunted by the night's events. The memories of strange guests and the chilling whispers would linger long after they had left. A chilling reminder that sometimes the most frightening experiences are the ones we cannot fully understand or explain. Story 5: The Forest Encounter. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the twisting road, Mark and Lisa found themselves navigating deeper into the heart of an ancient forest. The towering trees loomed on either side, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, threatening to envelop their car in darkness. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, and an unsettling silence fell over the landscape, interrupted only by the soft crunch of gravel beneath their tires. With each passing mile, the light waned, and the forest closed in around them, a tangled maze of shadows and silhouettes. Mark turned on the headlights, illuminating the path ahead, but the beam of light seemed to falter against the oppressive darkness. The car's engine hummed, a comforting sound that belied the growing sense of unease in Lisa's gut. She glanced at Mark, who wore a furrowed brow, focused intently on the road ahead, but she could see the tension in his jaw. "Do you think we'll make it through this forest soon?" Lisa asked, trying to break the heavy silence. Mark shrugged, his eyes darting to the rearview mirror. "I hope so. It feels like we've been driving forever." Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught Lisa's eye. She squinted into the darkness, her heart racing as she strained to see. Mark instinctively slowed the car, and they both froze as a shadowy figure materialized in the middle of the road ahead. It stood there, motionless, partially obscured by the creeping shadows. "Mark, what is that?" Lisa whispered, her voice barely breaking the thick air. Fear coursed through her veins as they stared at the figure, its outline indistinct and unnervingly still. Mark's grip on the steering wheel tightened, his knuckles turning white as he squinted through the windshield. "I don't know," he replied, his voice low and tense. "Should we stop?" Lisa felt a wave of instinctual fear wash over her. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to keep driving, to escape whatever menace lurked in the dark. "I don't think we should. Just go around it," she urged, her heart pounding in her chest. But before Mark could respond, the creature shifted. In a blink, it moved inhumanly fast, darting to the side of the road, then back again, its motion disjointed and unnatural. Lisa gasped, her breath hitching in her throat as the figure came into sharper focus. It had elongated limbs and a gaunt frame, its skin a sickly pale, almost luminescent in the car's headlights. The creature's face was shrouded in shadow, yet the absence of eyes felt palpable, an unsettling void that seemed to absorb the surrounding light. "Mark? Go!" she screamed, panic lacing her voice. He slammed the accelerator, the tires screeching against the gravel as they lurched forward. But just as they passed the creature, it lunged into their path again, moving with an uncanny speed that defied logic. Mark swerved, narrowly avoiding a collision, but the car shook violently as it hit a bump in the road. Lisa's heart raced as adrenaline surged through her veins, and she shot a glance back at the creature. It stood motionless now, watching them with a predatory stillness, as if it were toying with its prey. The sense of helplessness gripped Lisa's chest like a vice. "Keep going," she urged, her voice shaky but determined. The road twisted and turned, and they drove deeper into the forest, the trees closing in like prison bars. The tension hung thick in the air, an unshakable weight that made every rustle of leaves and crack of twigs feel like an impending threat. Yet the feeling of safety remained elusive. As the headlights pierced through the gloom, they revealed distorted shadows lurking just beyond the reach of the light. Lisa could sense that something was following them, the woods alive with a sinister energy. Her pulse raced with each passing second, the anxiety mounting as they ventured further into the darkness. Mark's breathing quickened, his hands trembling on the wheel. "I don't think it's gone," he muttered, glancing nervously in the rearview mirror. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine as she peered back, her heart leaping into her throat. The creature was no longer in the road, but she could feel its presence looming, an unseen weight pressing against them. "Lock the doors," she urged, her voice low and urgent. They both fumbled to engage the locks, the sound echoing through the confined space like a signal of their vulnerability. The weight of dread settled over them, a shroud of terror that thickened the air. As they drove on, the forest swallowed them whole, the shadows growing denser, the trees appearing to bend and twist as if reaching out to claim them. Lisa's gaze darted from the rearview mirror to the sides of the road, convinced that the creature was stalking them, its breath a chilling whisper against the glass. Then, without warning, the car's headlights flickered, illuminating the road ahead just for a heartbeat before plunging them back into darkness. In that brief moment, Lisa caught sight of the creature, standing eerily still at the edge of the woods, its pale skin glowing faintly against the shadows, a grotesque grin stretching across its face. "Mark, we need to get out of here," she shouted, fear gripping her throat. The car's headlights flickered again, and they lost sight of it. The silence felt oppressive, their breathing loud and ragged in the stillness. As they rounded a bend, Mark's foot pressed down harder on the gas pedal, desperate to escape the haunting presence that pursued them. Yet the road seemed to twist endlessly, the darkness closing in around them like a living entity. The looming trees blurred together, and Lisa felt the weight of the forest's watchful eyes, knowing they were not alone. Finally, the headlights illuminated a clearing, and the tension in Lisa's chest began to ease slightly. "We're almost out," she exclaimed, hope flaring within her. But just as they surged forward, the figure reappeared at the edge of the clearing, its unnatural form silhouetted against the moonlight. Frozen in place, Mark slammed the brakes, the car screeching to a halt. They were left in a state of paralyzed fear, the creature's approach slow and deliberate. It moved towards them with an unnerving grace, the shadows flickering around it as if it were a phantom of the night. Locked inside the car, they could only watch as the creature drew closer, its form shifting in the dim light, each movement heightening their sense of dread and uncertainty. They were trapped, ensnared in the grip of fear, the suffocating darkness closing in around them. The forest had claimed its prey, leaving them suspended in a moment that felt as if it would last forever. A chilling reminder that not all encounters in the wild lead to safety. Some are harbingers of horrors beyond comprehension. What happens when the thrill of the open road turns into a nightmarish encounter? Road trips are often painted as a beautiful rite of passage, a chance to escape the routine and explore the world with friends or family. The promise of endless landscapes, spontaneous adventures, and laughter shared in the confined space of a car can be intoxicating. We dream of winding roads, stunning vistas, and the freedom that comes with a full tank of gas and an open map. But beneath this alluring facade lies a darker side, one where unexpected horrors lurk just beyond our headlights, waiting to transform a joyous journey into a chilling nightmare. Picture this. You're driving down a desolate highway, the sun slowly sinking beneath the horizon, casting an eerie glow that fades with every passing mile. The atmosphere shifts as twilight blankets the road, filling the air with an unsettling tension. Suddenly, the familiar road transforms into a potential trap, and the warm glow of your headlights reveals shapes that may not belong. Each passing shadow could be an invitation to an adventure or a harbinger of something sinister. These unsettling moments remind us that the unknown can lurk at every turn, turning a carefree journey into a heart-stopping experience. In this video, we'll delve into 5 true scary stories of eerie road trip encounters. Each narrative will unveil the lurking dangers and mysteries that exist just beyond the headlights, ready to send shivers down your spine. From unsettling hitchhikers to abandoned gas stations that seem to breathe with life, these stories illustrate the psychological impact of travel and the feelings of vulnerability that arise when we venture into the unknown. So buckle up, keep your eyes on the road, and prepare for a journey into the chilling world of eerie road trip encounters. You might just think twice before your next adventure on the open road.